I'm Mark Rounsevell. I'm from the University of Edinburgh in the UK, but also from the Karlsruhe Institute of Technology in Germany. My role was as one of the two co-chairs of the IPBES regional assessment for Europe and Central Asia. Clearly there is a problem, and what you find right across the regional assessments is similar types of numbers, sometimes more, sometimes less. Depends on the individual species, it depends on the individual geographic locations, but I think we're all reporting some of these major declines. One of the aspects for Europe and Central Asia, which is probably a little bit different than some of the other regional assessments, is we found as well that Europe is consuming much more in terms of renewable resources than it's actually producing within the region itself. So effectively we're creating a very large ecological footprint on the rest of the world. We import a lot of food, timber, etc. And that's having enormous impacts also on the biodiversity and nature of other parts of the world. So the issue for us is not just about what happens within our region of Europe and Central Asia, it's actually our activities and how they impact on biodiversity elsewhere. And we found that was very significant. We were able to quantify some of those effects as well based on what's within the literature. Well, personally, I'd react to it with some considerable concern. It's clearly highly worrying. I work in this field because I feel passionate about the issues that we're discussing here at this IPBES conference. And I would like to think that I can, at least even in some small way, make a difference in terms of preserving the nature that we all depend upon. And I think ultimately that's it. Humanity entirely depends upon the contributions that nature provides for us, and if we continue to degrade nature, then we're simply going to reach levels of degradation where we can no longer sustain the human race. It really is a question of survival, ultimately. I've got 2 kids. I'm concerned about what sort of life they're going to have in 50 years' time. Will we be able to sustainably use natural resources in ways which would be appropriate for the future generations? The logical conclusion then, if we're going to do something about it, is to de-intensify land use. That makes a lot of sense. But then if you reflect on it for a moment, from what I was talking about a little bit earlier, the other problem is we displace a lot of our activities to the rest of the world. So if we start de-intensifying in Europe, that means we're going to be producing less food, maybe producing less timber. And if we start doing that, then that means where are we going to source that food and that timber? Probably from elsewhere in the world. So all we're doing by ameliorating, improving the problem, mitigating the problem in Europe is potentially we could be exporting that problem to other parts of the world. So it's a real contradiction. So we know we're not doing great things in Europe because we're too intensive. We're not doing great things in the rest of the world because of the export of the problem. And ultimately what we have to reflect on is not about the production of the contributions of nature to people. It's not about food production per se, although that's important. It's actually about the consumption of those commodities. And unless we start acting seriously on the ways in which we consume food, timber, etc., whatever we're interested in terms of renewable resources, unless we really address some of those issues, then we've got a serious problem. We know, for example, that even very small changes in diets, just reducing meat consumption, particularly livestock products such as beef and pork, would have an enormous impact in terms of freeing up more land to make it available, to give space to nature and biodiversity. So if we just make small changes to our own personal habits, and if governments can support us in that behavioural change, then we can really do something about it.